Clock's ticking. Chandler, you got anything for us? This is it.
All right.
Running out the clock. Hey, I'm your friend Joseph Craven. Keith was singing some song that I didn't know what he was getting into. Keith, go ahead and sing your song. I want to hear it now.
Oh no, it was the Karate Kid song.
Okay, I don't think you understand, Keith. I want you to sing the song.
Sing it.
Keith, just sing the song. The podcast won't continue until you sing the song.
Sing the song.
We're gonna have 48 hours of dead air.
I've sung. Chandler has now sung a song. Gray will probably sing something, and then you have to sing it.
Gray, you got it, and then you moved on. So
no, you didn't. Passed. You sang one word, and you haven't continued. It's over with. And I need you to sing it, or else the podcast will not continue.
I think Keith is now under review.
Keith is hardcore under review. Hardcore. In fact, we're just going to go ahead and mute Keith for a little while. Oops, I took Gray out of the stream. Wrong person. We're going to mute Keith for a little while until he feels like he's learned his lesson. This is Running Out the Clock. I'm Joseph Craven. I'm joined by Gray Barnes. Gray, how are you? You're muted, by the way.
Gray is muted. So.
Yep, muted. This is like playing video games with Gray because he somehow finds a way to mute himself.
Whoops. Sorry, everyone. I'm doing great. I'm sorry that you missed my rendition of Ave Maria.
Oh, man. How unfortunate.
Yes, I was also singing while muted. So
no, you weren't.
Everyone
You're such a liar. You know what? You're not even under review. I'm just not allowing you on the next podcast. I'm just executive decisioning that one, Keith.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You have to grovel. Unless you grovel. If you grovel, I'll let you on. And, of course, we're joined by, as I mentioned, Keith, who refuses to play along and hurts my feelings, and the one and only Mr. Crambles Johnson. Crambles, how are you today?
I am doing well. I'm just scrambling around.
I have been purposefully delaying the start of this podcast because this weekend was boring.
It was bad.
It just was a bad weekend of football. And at the same time, it's hitting the time of the year in which, and I'm pretty open about the fact that college football in and of itself is quite honestly like one of my least favorite sports. So I'm reaching the point in which like it's getting harder and harder for me to care about like everything going on until I can find a good storyline to get behind. So I'm going to ask you guys if you know of any good storylines that I could keep up with this season. That'd be great. Because like last year, Gardner Minshew was happening. Minshew Mania out in Washington. That was fun, you know? And I feel like I haven't found any of those stories yet. So I need something like that.
Georgia Tech and Tulane both have thick, beefy punters.
Oh, that's true. But that's kind of your thing. I don't want to get into your brand. You're the beefy punter lover of the podcast. Don't want to steal your brand here. Before we get too far ahead of anything here, we do have to start the podcast off the way that we always do. And that's by talking about the Noles. The Noles winning football games? Winning conference football games? Does this make any sense?
What sort of future we've actually stumbled upon, but I don't like it.
This appears to be the darkest timeline. Guys, you got any thoughts about the Noles actually winning back-to-back games here?
Not really. I find joy in the ineptitude of the Seminoles. It's just kind of funny to me. So when they win, what else is there? I don't know. I feel like we're on a lot of Power 5 teams right now, actually, though.
I'm glad to see Cam Akers doing well. I mean, good for him.
Yeah, like he was never necessarily like doing poorly, but he never
right. It was just the team around him was
the team was
awful.
So bad it didn't matter. Like he couldn't do anything, you know. So Cam, of course, a native of mine and Gray's hometown of Clinton, Mississippi. C-Town represent.
Go Arrows.
Go Arrows. That's how we always said it up in the stands. We're like, go Arrows! A Clinton high school football tradition is their playing of the unofficial fight song, the main theme from Jesus Christ Superstar. And of course, being
That's exactly what I expected you to say.
I know. And of course, being a public school, they shortened to Superstar. I don't know if that was the official name of the song, but it's from the musical Jesus Christ Superstar. So we always made a joke about the fact that the sheet music just said Superstar. It's probably a copyright issue, actually. Maybe I'm about to get Clinton High School in trouble. I don't know.
Superstar.
But the crowd would get nuts whenever we started into Jesus Christ Superstar. Everyone's favorite hype song. Quick recap of the scores from this past weekend. Of course,
Are we giving credit where credit's due?
I will right after I get through the scores. Yeah.
Why don't you settle down, Chandler?
Keith, you're the one who is treading on thin ice, sir. Must I remind you again? All right. Texas A&M, who I predicted to win by about 1,000, lived up to my prediction and won by 4 points against Arkansas. Thanks, A&M. The one time I put any faith in you. Vanderbilt, I, of course, did not predict. I was not on the podcast last week, but I submitted predictions, and I cannot predict Vanderbilt in good faith in any matchup other than the one they've got this weekend. So Vanderbilt beat Northern Illinois 24-18. The state of Alabama as a whole destroyed the state of Mississippi as a whole. Alabama over Ole Miss 59-31. Auburn over Mississippi State.
31-point moral victory, baby.
Yeah. Auburn 56, Mississippi State 23. Along with that, number 9 Florida had a tough one against Towson, 38-0. South Carolina beat a clearly demoralized Kentucky team, 24-7. And then the games that we actually predict as well, as we mentioned, Florida State beat North Carolina State, and Harvard beat Brown. I like the fact that you guys threw that one in there as the random match.
Harvard, you guys are wicked smart.
Harvard went up to Brown and said, "You like apples? How you like them apples?"
Go Harvard.
I got the victory. So there we go. Now we're going to do what we like to do and do something where in order to combat the constant negativity out there in the world of sports media, we try to, give some credit maybe to people that are not getting enough credit. So I'm going to go around the circle or around the square here as far as it goes clockwise and start with Crambles. Crambles, do you have a nominee that you'd like to mention here? In what I always affectionately refer to as which Ole Miss player is Crambles going to nominate this week?
I'm not going to nominate Ole Miss player.
What?
I'm getting and I didn't nominate an Ole Miss player last week. I nominated the beefy Tulane punter.
Yeah.
For the 60+ yard punt followed by the arrow celebration.
It's so good.
I am going to give a shout out to my favorite coach in the country, Jeremy Pruitt, because they didn't lose this weekend. Did they play this weekend?
They are undefeated in week 5 this year.
Does that matter? In your heart of hearts, you know that it doesn't.
I feel like you've missed the point of the segment once again. I feel like you and Keith are both under review. This podcast next week is just going to be me and Gray and Rose.
Oh, no. Gray is also under review now. For
Dang it. What did you do, Gray?
No. I've been trying to stay right down the middle this whole time. I've barely spoken 5 words since this podcast started.
You know what?
That's why you're under review.
Nobody gets a podcast.
Fair enough.
No one. We're just shutting the podcast down next week. Gray, do you have any nominees for someone that you think deserves some credit and maybe isn't getting enough?
Yeah. I'm going to give a lot of credit to Brian Snitker, the manager of the Atlanta Braves. He has gotten a lot of flack in his stint there, but he has led to 2 straight NL East titles. And nobody really had a whole lot of faith in the Braves this year in that division. And once again, headed to the postseason. And the Nats and Phillies are a wild card at best. So thanks, Brian.
I mean, it feels like forever ago now that the Braves were always the lock to win the division, Yep. And so it is cool to see that happening again because for a while in there, they didn't have anything to brag about.
No.
Yay. Keith, a.k.a. Tua's 3rd Heisman, as you have on your nameplate, which I want to give you some credit for that. Do you have any nominees?
I'll nominate Will Muschamp for probably the second time this year, I feel like, for saving his job again. I feel like if they had lost to a clearly sliding Kentucky team, he might have been out of there. But they hung on for the win, and now Kentucky's probably just going to pack it up and break out the basketballs.
Yep. Yeah. Conference victories go a long way, especially. I don't know if it means much for Muschamp's chances of actually, holding on to his job by the end of the season, but conference victories do go a long way in that regard. I'm going to real quick give some props to Mac Brown at North Carolina. They put up a big fight against number 1 Clemson. They made the bold decision that I totally support to try to go for 2 at the end of the game and just go ahead and, decide it in regulation and not give Clemson one chance to beat them and not give them a bunch of overtime chances to beat them. That sort of thing. And it didn't pan out for him, didn't work out. But considering what North Carolina was like when Mac Brown took that job, to even be in the contest at all against the number 1 team in the country, I think deserves some credit. So shout out to Old Man Mac. That's
Old Man Mac.
That's his official nickname. This is now an Old Man Mac Brown fan podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Just starring me. All right. Well, regrettably, that wraps up all of our beginning of the podcast segments, and now we have to actually talk about the Southeastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. Okay, I'm going to try to start somewhere. We're at a point now as we get into going into week 6 of the season, in which we have made some comments on the podcast that maybe a lot of these teams are the same team as last year, that sort of thing. It's starting to look maybe a little bit more like, outside of like LSU, maybe, I don't know, everyone's a little bit worse than last year. I don't know. I can't figure it out. The question here is, you've got an A&M team that's hanging on to a top 25 ranking. You've got an Auburn team that is hanging into a top 10 ranking because they don't lose. They haven't lost yet, that sort of thing. You've got a Kentucky team that looked like they were going to be able to repeat a little bit of some success from last year and then very quickly have fallen off the rails. South Carolina has not figured things out. I mean, I don't even know at this point in time who in the SEC would be considered like a good team and who isn't in all of this. You know what I mean? And I don't know. Am I alone in this thinking that it's kind of hard to get a read on the conference as a whole? It kind of seems like maybe like 3 good teams and then a whole bunch of mediocre at best pretenders. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just want to throw that out there and see if that resonates with anybody. I'm using like modern day preacher lingo in that one. Non-denominational podcast, sports podcast over here. So
yeah, I feel like like the 3 teams obviously being LSU, Urbana, and Georgia, and then like I don't know, Auburn. So like you have those 3 teams.
Yeah, because like Auburn and Florida
clearly above everybody else, and then you've got like Auburn maybe, and then like maybe Florida, and
because that's the big matchup this weekend. So I can't tell if either of those teams are really good.
Right, and then you've got like Tennessee and Arkansas that are in a league of their own, but for all the wrong reasons. And then you just kind of got everybody else in like a Royal Rumble. Mediocrity.
We say that, but like Arkansas actually put up quite a fight this weekend, which then raises the question, well, was it a good performance from Arkansas or bad from A&M? Like, what do we do with that?
Right. Yeah.
That's where my confusion comes in. And
I mean, a little bit of both,
maybe.
Like Arkansas kind of swinging up a little bit, punching up, and then A&M coming off of that really embarrassing loss to Auburn last week. Like I say it's embarrassing because Auburn put up like 200 yards of total offense, and they still found a way to lose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is just why it's been weird to me, and that's why I wanted to float the question out there, because it's kind of hard to get a realistic feel. The conference, like top to bottom, does not seem. It seems as competitive as always, like in a bad way.
Mhm.
Like it used to be really competitive because maybe you had two really clear-cut top teams, but then everyone else had a legit case for, second through sixth place in either division. And now it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of like see who kind of sucks the least sometimes.
I think that middle tier has just shrunk because you've had. I mean, A&M. I know they've always kind of been frustrated under someone, and now that they're giving Jimbo $80 billion, he's supposed to fix everything. But under someone, they were kind of always that threat to finish second in the league. Under Mullen, State was kind of always in that same hunt to finish second or third. And then you kind of had Auburn and LSU that were always there. Well, Auburn and LSU look like they might be contenders for the league along with Alabama. A&M and State seem like they've fallen off a good bit. Arkansas is in flames in a ditch right now, and Ole Miss is like, I don't know.
Standing outside fanning the flame.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They're throwing gasoline on.
like Ole Miss and Arkansas were in the same car together, and Ole Miss jumped out of the car before it hit the ditch. So like,
I don't think Ole Miss jumped out of anything. I think that they got like ejected from the car and are just laying on the road.
Right. So they're better off like on the pavement, but they're not
Right.
in the ditch on fire.
They're still dead, but
and then the East just continues what the East has always done, where there's one good team and then a whole bunch of like kind of in the middle of it. So
but like it's. Whoa, my echo came in hard all of a sudden. I thought I was talking over someone. Turns out it's just myself. But then like it is. I mean, is Florida good enough to contend in the East? Right? Like, is it actually a two dog race over there in the East? Well, that's the question here. Like,
I mean, maybe
hard no.
But yeah,
Okay.
I haven't. I mean, because Georgia is that python that just strangles you to death slowly without ever going for like the quick strike kill. And
Yeah,
I haven't seen
Florida,
anything.
Florida has no run game, and their secondary's all injured.
Yeah, I've seen nothing from their offensive line or from Franks that says that they're going to be able to score at all on.
well, yeah,
Well, Franks is gone.
yeah, you wouldn't see anything out of Franks.
Yeah,
He
that's
hasn't
right,
played
that's
in a few weeks.
That's right. He his ankle's dead. R.I.P. Felipe.
Pour one out.
Pour one out. The Trask Master.
Yes.
Yeah, but Traskmaster also just ruined Kentucky's will to live. Apparently,
I need to point something out real quick. I've got the TV on mute, and there's currently a commercial with Ron Swanson, Keenan Thompson, and Peyton Manning talking about laundry detergent.
Mm-hmm. And it's been going on for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long commercial.
It's no longer even a commercial. I think
It's
at
an
this point in
infomercial,
time,
man.
I think this is a pilot for a sitcom at this point. I think it qualifies.
I would watch it.
I am now. I'm certainly not paying attention to this podcast.
I'm sorry. That was weird. Anyway.
Yeah, Tide and the NFL have been doing this whole weird, laundry night marketing campaign that I'm not entirely sure about. But
anyway, I think
yep.
I think in the East you still got all those teams just wandering in the wilderness, and in the West, it's that middle level has completely fallen off because you've got Auburn and LSU who look really good, and then everybody underneath that just looks awful.
You mean Bama and LSU, or do you mean Auburn looks really good to you?
No, I mean, do they look
outside of Bama?
Outside of Bama, yeah. I mean, do I think that Auburn's going to be able to beat Alabama? No, probably not. But I mean, that defense is really, really good. So who knows?
Gray, jump in on this now. This whole, I don't know what you call it, the middle ground, I think is the right way to call it. I mean, do any of these teams, is there just that big of a divide, I guess, between the top two teams in each division, top three maybe in the West, if Auburn actually is any good? I still don't think they are, by the way. I think that they're a barely top 25 team that's just kind of lucked out. But like, I don't know, is it really that way where it's kind of just clear cut, very, very top tier and much farther down the list everyone else? What's your take on this, Gray?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been waiting for this weekend to kind of assess that in my own mind. And I mean, it was a good litmus test for the Ole Miss, Mississippi State, even Texas A&M. I mean, just by the performance that they showed, kind of proved that, they got a long way to go if they're trying to get to that top tier, along with, the Bamas and LSUs. And I'm kind of with you. I don't think I put Auburn quite there. I think you've got the Alabama, LSU at the top in the West, and then Auburn's they're below that, and everybody else is just kind of all mingled in with each other. I mean, and who knows? Arkansas might be putting up a fight every week at least now, after what they showed, against the Aggies. But yeah, it's all just this kind of weird mix of kind of mediocrity, and it's hard to believe. This time, 4 or 5 years ago, you had the weekend where Mississippi State and Ole Miss both came off of huge wins.
Mm-hmm.
Huge wins. I mean, to vault them up into the top 5, and that seems like a long, long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Just their performances were just so. I was not anticipating kind of what I saw, at least from Mississippi State. That's what I really was paying attention to. I didn't have a ton of time to check in, but yeah, I mean, even from last year, that kind of swagger from Mississippi State seems kind of gone. A&M seems like they're not really sure what they're doing offensively. It's just kind of a big mess, except for those top tier teams.
What is your take, Gray, on Auburn as a team? Because, and I mentioned this in particular to you, is because, for anyone that doesn't listen to, we've been doing the weekly pessimist, our like Mississippi State, deep dive sort of podcast. And we were, talking about this game and how we didn't necessarily have faith, but we also didn't really know what to expect because Auburn's kind of hard to figure out so far this year, whether they're actually any different. And we made the observation that Gus Malzahn is the current. He's taken the reins from Les Miles in terms of a coach that just kind of tends to have these seasons where he probably is shooting way above his talent level in performances here. But after this weekend, I mean, do you have any firmer assessment on what type of team Auburn actually is?
Yeah, I think they're a really good team. I think the main issue that I was kind of waiting to see was if they had that switch where they could kind of go for the jugular. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And man, did they do that? I mean,
yeah, they did it like 30 seconds into the game.
Yeah, I mean, holy smokes! I mean, Malzahn, he really called a great game, as well as Auburn taking advantage of a fully unprepared team.
Mm-hmm.
It was just all the right buttons were pushed. Now, if they can do that consistently, they might be able to challenge an LSU or an Alabama, but we haven't seen that consistently so far. We saw it this past weekend.
Yeah.
You saw the running game. This is the first week you really saw Bo Nix kind of show out, see what kind of potential he had. If they can keep that going, I mean, we'll have to wait and see against the better teams that kind of we've been talking about. But I think they're really, really good. I need to see one or two more and see if they have that kind of killer instinct again against a team who is actually focused and ready to go, which they were not playing this week.
Who seems prepared?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Knicks, like so many of their victories have come off of less than impressive, performances as a whole. The Oregon game was not pretty. Knicks was terrible in it until the very last pass. The A&M game, as Keith mentioned earlier, they had 200 yards of total offense and won that. So this was the first time the offense actually did anything. And you know what? One guy that I'm not going to give any credit to is Auburn running back Jatarvius Whitlow for slamming into a actual living dog and refusing to even acknowledge the horrible crime that he committed by hitting a dog.
That was the story that I was following at that point.
Yeah.
I was trying to get on news to see if Bully was okay.
I know. He wounds an actual living, breathing, beautiful doggo and doesn't even acknowledge, looks back and goes, huh, okay, as the dog is reared back growling about to attack him, which is pretty funny. You know what?
Remember a few years ago remember a few years ago when Uga bit an Auburn player?
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Auburn and Bulldog
Auburn just hates Bulldogs.
don't go well together.
Exactly. Bunch of douchebags, dog hating douchebags, and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. All right. So you know what, Whitlow, you're not all right with me, buddy. Until you publicly apologize to dogs everywhere for your mistreatment and cruelty to animals. I think that's
shame
fair.
on the Auburn beat crew for not at least asking post game about it either.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So Chandler, who is actually showing any improvement? I mean, we've mentioned a lot of teams that are showing regression in definitely Mississippi State, probably A&M, unsure about some other teams. Kentucky, even South Carolina. South Carolina was underwhelming last year, but they seem to be doing worse this year. Less consistent,
year.
It's just the weirdest thing. And in particular, also, Chandler, you had mentioned how many off, the podcast to texting to us and all that, how many Ole Miss freshmen have been forced into a significant playing time. Are you seeing improvement from that young squad? Is any team seeming improved to you at all, including that super young Rebel squad?
I mean, I think Auburn's the story because Auburn's defense is so good, but it still feels a little too early to say with Ole Miss and the freshmen. But it should stand out that Ole Miss in the 2 years before this year, they were outscored 127,000 to 10 against Alabama. And
I'm gonna double check the scores on that, but that sounds like an accurate number to me.
Yeah, whatever the actual numbers are, the interns went ahead and ran them, and they were bad. But yeah, they went out and put up 31 points. I mean, some of those came in garbage time, sure, but that's still, I mean, basically the last 57 minutes of the last two games have been garbage time. So they maybe, I mean, that's it. It's a good start, and we'll see how that continues and kind of what ends up happening in the weeks to come. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard to look into say who has or I mean, I can't look at Arkansas and say that they're any better. Texas A&M has clearly taken a step back. I think State's on a downward trajectory. South Carolina is also looking worse, but it's because they lost their senior starting quarterback, so that's anybody's going to hurt from that.
Right.
They
didn't necessarily look great before he. They've looked better as a team with Helinski.
Yeah. Missouri, maybe. I mean, we always forget Missouri exists. I often forget Missouri exists, but they certainly seem like they've gotten better from last year. And I don't know. It's such a hard question to try to answer right now, just because it's still early enough, and it still feels like nobody's really played anybody. So we'll kind of see how it settles out. But I don't know, man. I have a hard time saying anybody outside of like LSU is like decisively improved. So
yeah. No, exactly. Keith, does anyone in the East stand out? You're our resident East correspondent, as we always say. I mean, do you notice anyone in the East that is actually really showing improvement in that regard at all? Or it's just everyone getting suckier?
Yeah, like, I mean, I just had to actually check because I can't remember actually seeing a Missouri score since like week 2. So I had to make sure like they didn't just fold the program while we weren't like paying attention. But good news to all you Mizzou fans, they are in fact still playing games. But yeah, like they're 3-1 and they seem to be doing better. Like Florida technically is better because they don't have that one loss so far. They're 5-0. And like Kentucky scheduled their implosion for far earlier than they usually do.
I know.
South Carolina's literally fighting for their head coach's job in week 4 and 5. Like it's
last year, Kentucky bucked the trend of the midseason collapse, and it's actually now gone the complete opposite direction, and they're collapsing at the beginning of the year.
It's just as soon as they started playing football.
Yeah, and Texas A&M's is coming mid-October.
Right.
Don't forget about that either.
Yeah, they're classic going up the roller coaster and then flying off of it.
Yep. We know how they do. It's tradition.
The Aggie coaster.
Big tradition.
That was like the best picture ever. But yeah, and like Vandy's gonna Vandy, and Tennessee's just as terrible as they were last year. Probably even worse. So like the East is just a maelstrom of terrible right now. It's weird.
The whole conference, man.
You know what this really is? Kind of what I'm starting to realize again is, you said the phrase bucking trends a second ago. I think that everything is all just as boring as it is. It's all leveling out again. You know, you've had years where Arkansas gets to top 10. You've had the, 2 schools from Mississippi, getting to the top 5. Have good runs, and it just seems like we're back at the Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU. It's just all so boring again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we're only 5 weeks in.
Yeah.
But no team outside of those traditional boring programs have shown anything to really write home about at all. Yeah. They're either plateauing or getting even worse. And I know we've kind of already said that, but nothing really just kind of stands out to you.
I mean, what college football really needs is an expansion team to shake things up.
Yeah, for real.
That's what I've been saying for a while. Give Seattle the Supersonics back, and it'll fix all sports.
Yeah.
It will.
Well, I think, Gray, along the lines of what you're saying is that, yes, that is pretty frustrating, but I think it also makes those top of the league games a lot more interesting and feel a lot heavier. I mean, Alabama LSU actually feels like that might be a game now. Auburn LSU, Auburn Alabama. I mean, you've got these games that feel like, okay, this actually might be pretty fun again for the first time in a while. And then also it's like, what kind of train wreck is Ole Miss Vanderbilt going to be? What disaster is, South Carolina, Tennessee going to be? So it kind of gives you that same looking at the, you can't look away from a train wreck kind of possibility for the bottom half of the league. And who doesn't like to watch a train wreck?
That's outside of context. That would be probably the worst question someone could actually offer. But
exactly
inside of context, it makes total sense. Yeah, and that at its foundation, that is what I absolutely hate about this sport is the fact that any trend, and all sports are like this. I forget who I was talking to about how sports, like when a new trend comes in, eventually everything starts to level out again. I don't remember if that was on this podcast or it was just me and somebody hanging out. I don't remember. It all blurs together. Something's wrong with me. But this the whole thing with college football about how like it's just and it's structured this way because the NCAA is in charge, but like, you know, those powerful programs are always going to be the powerful programs. Mm-hmm. And then like a trend may come along like the way modern offenses are, and it kind of levels playing fields out a little bit until eventually everyone jumps on board with it. And, you know, the rich get richer, as the old, you know, stupid phrase goes. That sort of thing happens again. And it's just frustrating because at the end of the day, the stuff that I love about like sports themselves, you know, the interesting storylines, you know, the compelling personalities involved, they get overshadowed by the fact that none of them actually accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. UCF was incredibly fun to watch a few years ago, undefeated, the big streak, you know, should have been in the playoffs. And then the powers that be say, no, they don't deserve to be here, and they're not. And so it's like, okay, well, what's the point of even having like a good storyline to follow? What's the point of even having an underdog at all if we just are, you know, always going to be, you know, be okay with the underdogs never succeeding in that regard? You know what I mean? That's what it always frustrates me about it. It's like we know already that the playoff's going to be Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and either Ohio State, either LSU, something like that. We already know who's going to be in contention for a national title. We always do. We've known who's going to be in contention for a national title since 1990. We just know, you know, it's just how it is. And it just gets frustrating because there's no real, for as much as we talk about like everything that goes into making college football so great and like the culture behind it, there's no like unpredictability, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to talk about the greatness of college football, you have to talk about the college football that exists outside of the top 6 teams. You have to, and you have to enjoy like college football success and entertainment that has nothing to do with what everyone defines success as. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to be able to enjoy a player who's just good at the sport, who plays on a team that isn't, you know, the best team with the best coach and wins a national title. You know, you have to be able to enjoy that. But like championships are the only measuring stick that anyone uses anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it's just annoying. It's just annoying. I'm getting on. It's a soapbox night for me, apparently, guys. I'm just getting on this thing.
Now, Cam Newton.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought it up because I was legitimately going to do this.
Oh,
good Lord.
Pandora's box has been opened.
I didn't read it. I don't care.
There's nothing to read. It's a YouTube video.
I didn't watch it. I don't care.
Cam Newton put out an extremely pretentious YouTube video explaining why he's not playing and how he's trying to make sure he's really healthy. And it opens up with him sitting in like apparently the spirit of some 1930s film director has taken his body, and he's wearing like a weird ascot thing and drinking a wine and smoking a big cigar with like an old driving cap on. He's like, I'm just going to be real with you guys. And I'm like, you're already not real. You're a cartoon character already. So
he was in like this like Nike commercial or something that was like supposed to be highlighting like high school athletes. And then it just keeps cutting to him in like a hoodie, like saying, yeah. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're adding here, but sure.
Yeah. Okay. And so the real reason I'm going to bring this up is because with it being a pretty boring weekend, and before we get into our prediction segment, I thought I'd throw a surprise question at you guys.
Ooh.
Okay. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it. Here's the question.
Yes.
Okay. You're gonna hate the question. You're gonna hate that answer once you actually hear the question. The question is, who is your least favorite athlete ever? Yeah, who is the athlete that, if we're just going to go ahead and dive straight into like anger and soapboxes this week or whatever it is, I just have to go on record as saying I think Cam Newton might actually be my least favorite athlete ever. Because like every time he starts to do something or he does something that I'm like, you know what, I actually can like that, such as, I mean, how involved he is in the community. That's great. And how active he is in interacting with fans at games, before games, after games, all of that's great and everything. And then he does something that makes me just think probably all of that is just an act because no one loves Cam more than Cam. And I might be completely reading into that wrong, but then he makes a video like he does. And I just think that he might be my least favorite athlete, like of all time. So I just got to throw that out there. I just got to know, guys, now, surprise question. Who is your least favorite athlete ever? Exactly. Gets you thinking.
Well,
I'm
I
not
was just
sure
saying-
about.
Oh, go ahead, Keith.
I'm not really sure about ever, but like most recently is probably Jameis Winston.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the whole like, yeah, he was the quarterback of a rival thing, but like that dude turned into the world's biggest asshole for like 2 straight years.
We're
then-
breaking out the dog barks for the first time this season.
We are.
The youth of a nation. And then like disappeared. So good for him. But like, I mean, y'all knew like the headlines and like what all happened with him and that girl and like just then there was like the crab legs thing, which was like a huge
So
meme and just the funniest thing ever.
So weird.
And then of course there was what like cemented it was was when they were playing Oregon in that playoff game, and the dude just like stumbles backwards and then like fumbles it and throws it like way behind him, and like the ref falls. And then there was the video
Yakety
of
sax
the
starts
dude,
playing.
Yeah, well, like-
Winston drops back and it starts going.
there was like that one, and then there was the video of the dude that blew in like LeBron James's ear.
Yeah, Lance
Lance,
Stevenson.
Yeah, and like he
There-
comes
there
in and
was a-
blows him over.
There
That
was
was so good.
there was an RKO out of nowhere video added to it.
Oh, that's so
dude.
good.
Like that one play provided me with maybe the internet's greatest like 24 hours.
Yeah, so good.
And it was so satisfying because Jameis Winston is just the biggest ass.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think for me with Jameis, like once he got into the pros, he started to like grow up and mature. So like his personality was better. But at the same time, like, you know, he might have gotten away with some terrible stuff in college. Yeah. Yep. And I do want to clarify something here. Like the reason, part of the reason why I bring up Cam Newton is obviously because of the vlog that he released on YouTube. But another part of it is because like the Cam Newton situation in college and the way that the NCAA like quasi investigated he was suspended for all of 24 hours and then they cleared him of charges instantly. His father said, no, it was all me. He didn't know anything about it. So that cleared him. The way it was handled is what killed my love for college football.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it just at that moment in time, I was like, okay, until there's a lot of changes in the way this whole sport is run, I cannot really enjoy it as just a sport anymore. And I mean, like, I'm a big, NFL fan, and that league is run terribly, but I can still overlook it because it, and this is just stuff that I can't. It made me like I might have watched this year's national championship game. I don't remember, but I hadn't watched a national championship game in years, ever since Cam Newton was in college, because it just frustrated me, I
think that was that like seminal moment where like even though we all knew that the NCAA was just in it for money, like that was the moment where they just said, "Yep, that's right. We don't care if we're even like not even trying to hide it.
Yeah,
we are only interested in what makes us money, and Cam makes us money, so he's good."
Exactly. Yep. Anyway, Gray, you were about to jump in on the discussion, I believe.
Yeah, like instantly, the first name that came to my mind was DeMarcus Cousins. And after thinking about it for the past 5 or 6 minutes, I've kind of cemented that it is DeMarcus Cousins. After on further review, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of explanation other than,
Than everything he's ever done.
Yeah, pretty much everything he's ever done. I mean, starting in college, he gets number one, he played for Kentucky for Cal in that monster recruiting class that he got when he was, kind of starting out there. He got that tip in the SEC championship game that because Cody Augustus decided he didn't want to box anybody out in the most important 2 seconds of his life.
Yep. Cody Augustus didn't want to box anybody out his entire career.
Yeah. And I was, put Cody Augustus at number 2. I really did not like Cody Augustus at all when he played basketball.
He was the Mississippi State version of Antoine Walker.
He really,
great. Why do you shoot so many threes? Because they don't have any fours.
Yep, that is a great comparison. Gets in the league. He's a franchise player, great player. In Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
Years go by, bad injuries, bad attitude, and then just decides he wants to ring chase. Takes the league minimum, goes to Golden State, and fittingly, actually doesn't end up playing or getting a ring. Anyway, I just really don't like DeMarcus Cousins.
And then there's, the stuff most recently where he might have been, what was he doing? Might have threatening to come after his ex-girlfriend or something like that.
He's getting married and the mother of his son was not letting his son
come to the
wedding, and so he threatened to murder her.
Yep.
Oh, yep. Add that to the list.
Which is a great look, a real great look for you, Boogie. Gosh. Anyway, Chandler, do you have anyone you want to add in here?
I'm actually looking through a list of most hated athletes of all time because I can't really come up with anybody for other than just petty reasons.
Sure. Oh, that and also, and I mean, out of all of us, you are, clearly the most hate-filled man in the podcast.
Yes, I am just, despite all this rage, I still am just a rat. I think that I guess my fair answer is probably Leo Lewis.
I was going to say Billy Cannon. Maybe you just hate Billy Cannon. So
I was 30 years from being born at that point. Who cares? And the stuff that happened with the NCAA and Ole Miss and Leo, I don't think any of that was his fault. But I watched that guy quit on his high school teammates multiple times, and I had a good friend that was playing with him at the time, and that has just always left a very sour and bitter taste in my mouth towards him. It's not as good of a reason as anybody else had, but yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say you phoned that answer in, Chandler or Keith, but I
tried to come up with a better one.
But you guys did, of course, bring up the same guys that you brought up in our rivalry episode last year.
How about let me say every white basketball player not named Marshall Henderson.
Oh,
That's
man.
it.
Or Todd Abernathy.
I was about to say.
Oh, man. I'd completely forgotten about old Abernathy.
My
Which is difficult to do.
I love you, T.
Marshall Henderson.
I was going to say, I've completely forgot about Abernathy, which is hard to do because Abernathy is probably the whitest last name I've ever heard my entire life.
He's as good as they come, but,
That's funny. Freaking Todd Abernathy. Forgot about them. All right. Well, I just thought I'd throw that surprise question out there because we were having such a rage-induced moment in general that I was keeping that question in my back pocket. I was like, do I pull it out? Do I not? And then, someone should have put a Cam Newton trigger warning at the beginning of the podcast because then I got triggered.
All right. Well.
All right. So let's move on then.
Predictions.
to the predictions. All right.
And let's go fast.
I was doing the math
Lightning round
on the past couple of weeks to catch us up to speed. And Chandler, after a flawless last week, has jumped into the lead on predictions with 47 correct predictions on the year so far. I'm in second at 45. Roe/Gray is at 44. And Keith, the defending champ, is at 43. Still a fairly tight race at almost the halfway point in the season. So we'll see how things go here. Thankfully, we do have a very small slate of games to predict, so it will not take too much time to get through it. Keith, if you've got the spreads ready, being our odds maker, the resident odds maker on the podcast.
I'm all spread out, baby.
That made me feel uncomfortable. Tell me.
It always does.
Tell me what we're looking at in Utah State at LSU. Is there anything on that guy?
LSU is a 1,000,000-point favorite.
All right. LSU, 1 million.
Double it.
24.
2 million LSU point victory.
I feel like this is a unanimous LSU pick. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I'm going money line on this one too.
All right. The next one up is Troy at Missouri.
Missouri is a 25.5-point favorite.
Mm-hmm. Another unanimous Missouri pick here for everyone?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The Tigers are playing quite well. I got to hand it to them. And because I neglected to do it earlier, I do want to say that the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers are playing well this season. I've decided I'm going to put their full Christian name in.
Mm-hmm.
Full Catholic name. Sorry, I forgot it's Louisiana. All right, Vanderbilt at Ole Miss. We're getting into the actual 3 conference games on the week here. We're starting with Vandy and Ole Miss. What's the spread on this one, Keith?
Ole Miss is a 7.5-point favorite.
All right, Chandler?
I don't like it, but I think that the Ole Miss freshmen that we talked about earlier have shown to be explosive enough, and that Vanderbilt has had a hard time scoring. So give me Ole Miss.
Makes sense.
I
Keith?
don't like it.
Yeah. I'm going to go home team.
I'm just going to put home team, make it sound like an old EA Sports production versus the home team. All right. Roe Gray, Row. Grow. What you got?
Grow.
Give me the Rebels. I'm taking the Rebels this weekend.
I like that you make
cover it too. Let's go.
I like that you make a face when you start trying to imitate Roe.
That's what I picture in my head when I listen to Roe.
Row
Hey,
slash
let's
Obama.
Let's just all do the rest of our picks as Roe.
God dang! All right, that was my Roe impression. This is the one game of the year in which I, on principle, pick Vanderbilt.
You're not wrong for that.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to win, but I'm going to pick them because I'm a man of principle here. Georgia, Tennessee. I can't imagine there being a very favorable spread to the Volunteers on this one, Keith.
Tennessee is a 24-point underdog.
24. Yeah. This unanimous as well, boys?
Yep.
Well, their fight song is Rocky Top, but it's going to be more like Rocky Flop for Tennessee this weekend.
That was such a good row line. I don't even want to attempt one. I'll try it on the next one. I'll try it on the next predictions. Then that's a unanimous Georgia pick for everyone here. So let's move on to the big game in the SEC this week. Top 10 matchup between Auburn and the Florida Gators. Keith, is there a line set yet?
Auburn is a 3-point favorite.
Ooh. A Booburn by 3.
A Rubaburn.
Chandler, what you got?
I'm sorry, I got an email right as you said. Who are they playing?
They're playing Florida. Auburn and Florida. It's the only game this weekend that matters.
That matters, yeah.
Yeah, give me Kyle Trask is not going to get it done this weekend. He's not up to the Trask, if you will, and Auburn is going to win big on the Plains.
All right, so it's in the swamp.
They're still going to win on the Plains.
God dang swamp. Keith,
The old hurricane coming in and blowing this game back to the plains. Give me them Gators.
Gray, who you got?
Merlin's getting it done.
I want to know what the arm thing was.
You know, I don't know what it's called, but before the game starts at Florida, they get somebody special to go down and go.
It's the old 2-bits cheer.
Yeah.
2 bits.
4 bits, 6 bits a dollar.
Yeah. That's what that was supposed to be. Doesn't come across on a podcast, but
I thought you were like hitting hook shots.
I made it.
Yep.
Oh man, I've played basketball with Ro a lot of times. Trust me, he has never attempted nor hit a hook shot. Chandler, the only thing that was not accurate in your Ro impression, by the way, was that you got Kyle Trask's name right. There's not a chance Ro would ever have gotten a player's name right on the first attempt. Oh man,
I thought getting the stadium wrong was enough.
it was. You're right. You're absolutely right. Sorry. Let's see. I just feel so inadequate, but I'm gonna have to go for it. Well, guys, my goddamn dogs let me down, so it's because we don't have Merlins anymore, and he's down there. He's gonna win them a national championship, and I'm just gonna be done with. It's basketball season. It's basketball season. And Auburn's a basketball school now. So I'm going to have to go with Auburn. Auburn's a basketball school. Picking Auburn. Auburn. Bruce Pearl is going to win the game for Auburn. God dang Bruce Pearl.
God dang it.
God dang it.
God dang it.
Swear to God.
Swear to God. Dang it.
Swear to God, Bruce Pearl.
Oh, it's so good.
All right. As always, we have a Florida State prediction that we make every week and a random prediction. And I decided to pick, I'll get to that in a second, but Florida State has to play against Clemson at Clemson this week. Is there a spread, Keith?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
We can assume it's a healthy Clemson spread, I believe. So, boys, is this, are we thinking Clemson in this one, top team in the country, or is anyone differentiating?
This morning, I was sitting alone, and I had a thought. And since it was a thought on a Sunday morning, I assumed that was a Christian ponder, if you will. And he's not walking through the door for the Seminoles.
You're muted. You're muted. I know you're doing a Ro impression, but I would have muted Ro as well for a Christian ponder pun. It was so good, but it was so bad. It was so good.
A Christian ponder, if you will.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Who are we picking?
Of course, Clemson.
I can't do this podcast anymore. Is this Clemson across the board? Anyone picking different?
Well, actually, Joseph, Alabama leapt Clemson in the latest AP poll. So the Clemson Tigers come in at number 2. But it don't matter, the Jameis Winston people going down.
Oh, all right, Gray Row. Who you got?
Grow.
Knowles going into Clemson. I don't know.
It's the sighing. It's the sighing that gets me every time.
Tigers going damn on. I don't know if that was Rowe. That just came out of me.
Probably was Rowe.
Oh God. Okay. All right. The final game, the random game. I'm going to go with Iowa at Michigan, and this is a notable game because right now most people are thinking that Iowa should win, and that sounds so weird to say. That we've reached a point in which looking at the, spending this whole episode talking about like the powerhouse, the big names always seem to be the big names. Then you have a thing like this where Michigan is falling. And much to the point where if you Google this game to see like when it's coming up and all, the top results that all come up are, what is Michigan going to have to do to try to beat Iowa? Like those are the headlines, are like Michigan is going to have to get this right if they even want to have a chance against Iowa. So weird to me. So I don't know if Iowa is the odds maker's favorite here, Keith.
Michigan is 5.5.
Okay, that's all I figured they still would be. So Michigan, the odds maker's favorite, but it seems like the common thread on the internet and everything is that most people are not thinking that they're the favorite at all in this game. Chandler, we'll start with you again.
I don't know how to do. I don't know what Roe thinks about Big Ten football. I've not gotten that deep into his psyche yet. I think Michigan's pretty bad, and Iowa's just kind of typical Iowa right now. So give me Iowa. All
right.
I don't feel good about it, but
Keith.
Oh yeah. Michigan. No, not a question. There's no question. Not a single doubt in my mind. Michigan.
All right. Grow.
Oh,
yeah. It's happening, man. I'm sorry.
Caught him off guard.
One serious prediction a week, and this is going to be my serious one.
Oh, okay.
Iowa is far and away the better team. I don't know what AP voters have seen in Michigan other than the fact that they placed them in the top 10 to begin the year, and they can't just knock them out of their top 25 for some reason. Michigan's bad. They got a lot of issues going on. And Iowa, like you said, is typical Iowa. It's going to be somewhere in the range of 24 to 13, something like that. They can't score. I got Iowa, and I got them covering and then some.
Well, guys, I got to be honest with you. Iowa plays almost flawless football. They didn't commit a penalty in a bowl game last year. So play almost flawless football. And Michigan, they're terrible right now. They're just terrible. So I think that Iowa goes in and defeats future Ole Miss head coach Jim Harbaugh in the Big House. Iowa, give me them those Hawkeye Buckeyes from Iowa town. Iowa City, Iowa. Call it.
And you know Jim Harbaugh's not qualified to be the Ole Miss coach because he ate at IHOP when he went to recruit Shea Patterson and Deontay Anderson.
Well, yeah, but that's mostly because Oxford doesn't have a Waffle House.
You're right about that.
Oh. All right. Whew. Thankfully, we get to call this podcast over. Gentlemen, this is going to wrap up our Week 5 discussion on running out the clock. Gray and I will try to produce a weekly pessimist this week to try to figure out if there's anything to take from the Auburn massacre. I don't know if you two or Keith, Chandler, if you guys are going to try to do anything else as well. But that is that's going to wrap things up on this discussion. And we thank you, listener, for tuning in to this episode of ROTC. We will see you same time next week. If you're listening to this podcast and you enjoy it, I don't know what's wrong with you, but feel free to tune in on our YouTube channel on Sunday evenings where we broadcast live. All right, I'm your friend Joseph Craven for Grow Bunter, Keith Harkins, and of course, Crambles Johnson. We're signing out. We'll see you next time on ROTC.
Get better, Roe.
From Parenthood?
For the record,
Yes.
Roe's fine. He just needs some sleep.
No, Roe's been dead for a month.